Welcome, Earthlings! From the minds of Dylan Oltoft and Rob McNeil, we bring you Laughing on a Prayer!
Okay, so basically, I really wanted to say, it's not you, it's me. But she wasn't Team Jacob, and so I just looked her dead in the eyes and I said, it's not me, it's you, and then I walked off.
I won't lie, that's got to be pretty much the worst live-action remake of Charlotte's Web I've ever watched.
Yeah, but the thing is, mate, it's like you just can't deal with those sort of people. These Team Edward people, you know, people are they people? I don't know. But,
who is a person?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, neither Edward or Jacob are actually people, really, are they? They're like well, they're not even werewolves, but
well, they're both forms of people, like. Vampire's a dead person and a werewolf's a furry.
Yeah, but he's not a werewolf though, is he, Jacob? Because he's not responsive to the moon. He's like a shapeshifter.
Oh, that's subjective. The moonlight shows him for what he really is.
Oh, mate.
Did they ever make books about the Pirates of the Caribbean movies?
Yeah,
I feel like I would read those.
Yeah, but they read them in retrospect from the films. So they basically... You have the films,
okay.
and
Books about the films.
Yeah.
Not stories. Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
Like the Assassin's Creed books.
I don't know. I haven't read them.
I have them. They're actually quite good.
Oh, I haven't even seen the film, actually. I feel like I should.
Oh, the Michael Fassbender one? I saw that in the cinema. It was actually not too bad. A little bit cheesy and kind of crap. But actually, if you're a big fan of the Assassin's Creed series, it is good.
But then, to be fair, I feel like I felt like The Witcher was a little bit, not crap, but like a little bit cheesy in places as well. So, you know.
Yeah, but thanks to Henry Cavill, sales of The Witcher books skyrocketed.
Yeah, and he plays video games as well.
That's the thing. I have a big problem now rewatching The Witcher, because now that I've watched it all, I find myself just skipping the Yennefer bits. I just want to go. I just want someone to super cut it so it's just Henry Cavill.
I
don't give a shit about what's her name, Newt. The little girl, she's pretty much like the little blonde girl from Aliens.
Siri.
Whatever it is. I don't give a shit about her. It's like when I was going through the books, the Game of Thrones. I'd just be like, Sansa. Oh, Jon Snow! A bit I want to read about.
Yeah, I also felt like that, because I've actually got it. No, it's somewhere here. Clash of Kings.
I see it right there.
Oh, yeah. Finished reading the first one, and I think I sort of suffered from this. I read it because obviously I'm not gonna, pussy out and not read a chapter. But like the bits with Arya, I'm just like, yeah, I kind of know. Not hugely interesting as much. I felt that. I suppose reading something in retrospect from watching it on screen can be a little slow for some people.
I think it's because Arya in the first Game of Thrones book had a lot going on. I mean, like, reading about her lessons with Seelowe was so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
And then reading about her being on the run, because after Ned Stark got his head chopped off and she was on the run. That was always interesting to read about. And
that's in 2 chapters, though, but, like, the rest of them are just like,
And again, Sansa. Oh, Sansa is the Bella Swan of Game of Thrones. Just this boring, breathy, whiny, bland toothpaste. Ugh.
I think she's a little better in the books, I think, because you definitely get the idea that she's more of, well, I suppose towards the end of the first one, that she's definitely more of this sort of like terrified child that's just realised, oh, actually the world really sucks.
Yeah.
Whereas in the TV show, I don't think they quite got that as much across.
It was more that they never developed her from that. I mean, before she went off to Ramsay, I think it was, I can't remember the end of which season, when you first saw her in like all black and she had dyed black hair.
That's the end of season 4.
At that moment, you were like, holy shit, Sansa's going to start being badass. She's going to turn into a Maleficent. She's finally going to start acting like Cersei and realise she's going to become a piece on the board. Oh, no, Littlefinger just, okay, she gets rid. Okay.
I mean, what I like about that scene, though, is that she walks down the steps the same way that Cersei does. So it's almost as if she's like, because she does talk about how she loves Cersei, and I thought that was good. I think from the Game of Thrones books, everything's so much bigger in the books, like scale wise. So like for instance, the carriage that they all arrive at Winterfell in the first book. Apparently, it's like the size of like a house.
Yeah. They
like,
pretty much make a big deal about how the king's entourage is like a mile long, and so they've all got to get shit ready.
Yeah, and then in the show, it's like when Robert goes hunting, it's like it's him and like 3 other people. Whereas in the books, it's like him and like 40 other knights, and like everything's just so much like bigger. In the
books the size of bricks, you've got a little bit. You could. That's the problem with even though the episodes were an hour long each, there's only so much world building you can pack into that. Yeah. And to be honest, in retrospect, like you said before, I'd say that gives even more credit to Peter Jackson, the way he... Because even I know the entire Lord of the Rings things, maybe the whole thing's in the extended is like maybe 9 hours long, but
it's real long.
The amount of world building in such a short amount of time between those 3 films itself is impressive, now that we've seen how hard it is to do that in Game of Thrones.
And I think... there's this classic old age phrase of like, oh well, the books are better, and I think that's because of the different medium in which they are. With books, you can afford to read a bit of a book, put it down, then read it another day. Whereas with a film, it'd be a bit weird if you like watched a bit of a film and then stopped and then watched another bit of film. And films are obviously way shorter than books. Books can indulge in more world building, so I feel that saying the books are better is a little unfair to the film medium.
I think that's because of I think that's why on streaming services binge-worthy shows have become a lot more popular, because you go on Netflix, you kind of don't want to start a film, because in a way a film is like an hour and a half. That's a bit of a commitment. But you just put on a TV show, maybe it's either half an hour or an hour. That seems a lot more easy, and at the end of an episode, you can just walk away.
And especially in like short TV series where like you have sort of like 20-minute episodes, it's really easy.
The animated ones like Final Space or Paradise PD or shit like that.
What I find interesting is that TV shows have really taken off hugely, because they can afford to have, even though the episodes are like an hour long, they can afford to have multiple episodes and then build the world much more, to the point where like they are potentially comparable to the books as far as sort of world building goes.
I wish they'd done books about Breaking Bad in retrospect now. I think part of me feels like I would, if that had started off as a book before a TV show, reading about Walter White, going through everything that he went through.
Yeah.
I think that could have been almost a better medium as a book. Imagine if you hadn't ever seen Gus, but he'd only just ever been described on written paper.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I think it might have been a bit more badass.
I wouldn't read a Breaking Bad book. I don't think.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know what happens, but then it's like, I don't know what they would make of it.
Well, I was a big fan of the TV show Dexter, and obviously that after the first season, that's pretty much like Game of Thrones. After they ran out of books to adapt, they pretty much just went off on their own, doing their own thing from that. And it's an interesting interpretation, because obviously everyone reads a book differently, and obviously they experience it differently from other people, because that's the medium of books.
Yeah. Do you know what I also feel? This is sort of like a not a tangent, but like it's sort of off to the side about Game of Thrones, is that people that have read the books know that it's not Sansa that gets married to old Ram Jam, it's Jane Poole.
Yeah.
And everyone knows this, but what I find a little bit, not disconcerting, but a little bit, I feel sorry in a way for Sophie Turner actually about this, is the fact that the creators, David Benioff and Dan Weiss, those guys, said to Sophie Turner, "Oh, you get like a romance storyline, like before, all right?" She's like, "Okay, got a romance storyline. Okay, that's great." But then imagine being like a young actress, and then suddenly it's just sprung upon you. You think you're getting a romance scene, but then it's just suddenly sprung upon you. Oh no, it's rape.
Imagine if they did that in Harry Potter.
Like, that'd be real bad.
Like, Emma Watson walks on set, like, oh, you're just going to have a scene with Draco, and Emma Watson like, okay, and halfway through the scene, Draco rapes Hermione.
I mean, the fact that they're both kids makes that worse.
Okay, fine. In the final film, I pretty much meant that. Obviously, was it Goblet of Fire? Like, you have to be 16 or something to do Goblet of Fire. So let's say Half-Blood Prince.
So hang on. So Goblet of Fire is the 4th book, so that's Harry's 4th year, so he's 15. Yeah, because he's 11 when you go to Hogwarts.
Christ, I keep thinking... The problem is, I only think of the actors now as adults, so I make those references not thinking about how they were in those films.
But I think my point I'm trying to make is, like, it must have been, like, quite uncomfortable for her to think she's having a romance scene and then finding out, oh, it's actually real bad.
It's kind of weird. You'd think there should have been a lot more rape in the Hunger Games books.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm thinking, like, the directors probably should have, like, given her fair warning. It's like, hey, look, this scene, it ain't going to be good. Like, I don't know why they sort of... I know they didn't want her to, like, spill stories or whatever, but it's like, man, like, you probably should have prepared your actor for that, you know what I mean?
I don't really know how you do that. So it's not the sort of thing you can method act.
Well, no, but it's like you prepare your actor to say, like, hey, look, there's going to be a scene of this nature, so I'm just letting you know, and so...
Sophie Turner come out with, like, interviews saying that made her really uncomfortable and shit?
Well, it was more the fact that she was like, oh, like, they built it up as being this big romance scene, or going to be big romance, and then it was like rape, and you're like, obviously, like, rape is a very, like, your sensitive subject. You're like, just to spring that on someone, like, you're like, bro.
I think in Game of Thrones at that point, a lot of people were numb to it. I think
but actors are still actors, though.
I think people were just really tired of seeing Sansa being Game of Thrones' punching bag. Because I can't think of another character other than Theon Greyjoy that was dealt so much shit non-stop.
Yeah.
Again, other than Theon Greyjoy. And even he had some good moments. Even he wasn't suffering as much in the first and second season.
He gets... Does he meet Ramsay?
Because he's mainly with Robert Robb, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
And he's not doing too bad for himself. It's only like in the third season when he's like Ramsay's hostage. But Sansa was being abused right until the end of the first one.
Yeah. Anyway, we are 10 minutes in.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Laughing on a Prayer. We are talking once again books. And plenty and stuff. I am Dylan Oltoft, and you...
Hang on, I'm just going to look this up. Apparently I'm Rob McNabb.
And it's Rob McNabb, and we are going to be doing a lot of discussion about literary characters, our favourite books and our favourite book characters, and once again, like our last episode, we are going to be doing excerpts from our own written books.
Yeah, because we can write. We can write words. We didn't say we could write well, but we can write words.
Both me and Rob are in the editing processes of our finished books, hopefully. I hope to get mine published by the end of this year. That is my goal for it.
Mine's got a long way to go, because I am what is scientifically known as lazy as fuck.
Rob is currently reviewing my book. I sent it out to 10 people, and Rob's the only one to come back to me so far.
Yeah, I'm up to chapter 7, so, I'm committed.
Out of 90.
Yeah.
But yes, in the meantime, we are responding to your comments. We have a few questions.
We have one question. It's a good question. It's a good question, I assure you.
Question. If you want your question answered, anything at all, I don't care if it's embarrassing. Truth be told, the more depraved, the better.
Yes.
But Rob, what have you got for us?
Well, we've got a question from the ever so faithful Molly.
Molly! Thanks so much for staying with us, given what I said last episode.
Yeah, and you, the fact, if anyone has made it through this long, you are a severely unhinged individual, and you should seek medical help at all costs.
That has to be the most waffling open we've ever done.
Yes, but, we're good at it, and...
love a good waffle open.
Yeah, exactly. We can be mature about this.
What's Molly Mulmore got for us?
Molly's question is, who is your favourite book character?
I'd say R.
R. Explain. Who is R and why do
you
like
the
R?
letter R, the character.
Oh, right. And who is R and why do you like them?
I was trying to be a dick there, but Rob subverted me. My favourite. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Yes.
Who's yours then?
My favourite character, believe it or not, but I mean, my favourite character in a book is probably Hagrid from Harry Potter.
Really?
And the book character, I mean, I love the film character Hagrid, but
have you read all the Harry Potters?
I have. Well, okay. I say I have. I've listened to them to the beautiful voice of Mr. Stephen Fry.
I would.
Yeah. Yes. Oh no, I read the last one because I wanted to find out who died actually.
There's motivation.
Yeah. Because J.K. Rowling was like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be really bad when who died." It was like Fred died. It was like, well, there's like another one of him. like, do you know what I mean? Like, but actually no, I say Hagrid. It's either Hagrid or Arthur Weasley. And
I wish Percy had died.
Yeah. I mean, he has a little redemption. but
Oh, fuck him, he's a prick.
I like and even though they're not so big characters, I'm actually gonna either Hagrid or Arthur Weasley. The reason why I like Hagrid, and this is book because this is about books.
Yes, yes.
So specifically, the book character Hagrid is his story. Going back to when he met, Voldemort and had his wand taken away because he had Aragog as the spider, and the fact that Hagrid, god damn it, Hagrid is like he's half giant, half person, human, Homo sapien. Yeah, he's a mixture, and obviously Voldemort being Voldemort, he doesn't like people mixing because he's Wizard Hitler, as we all know.
Wizard Hitler.
Well, yeah, he's a skinhead. I mean, you've seen him. And there's also political. But in the first book, there's one thing that's definitely skipped over is that Hagrid's alcoholism. Is that the kind of one of the reasons why Harry gets in so much danger in the first book is because Hagrid just divulges shit to a stranger in the pub. He says it in the film, but it's much more about his sort of drinking problem that Hagrid has. But what I really love about him is that he has this very much sort of like heart of gold. He's an animal lover, obviously. He's got this dog called Fang, and what I really like about him is that there's a bit in the Goblet of Fire where Hagrid talks to Harry, and he's talking about how he wants Harry to win, and the reason why is because he says, it's because Harry and Hagrid are both different, and he's like, I want people to see that different people can do great things, and I was like, oh, that's so like good. And I like Arthur Weasley as well, because I think mainly my liking for him is his attraction to Muggle things, because that's his job, the misuse of Muggle artifacts. And there's a scene in, I think it's the Deathly Hallows. Yeah, it's the Deathly Hallows, where he's got all this, like, just human stuff. I think he's got, like, a lawnmower and stuff, like, in his shed that he, like, studies and things like that. And he's sort of fascinated by even, like, the tiniest trinkets of human muggle things. And there's a wonderful scene when they all go to the Dursleys and they use flue powder, but the Weasleys get stuck in the chimney, and so Arthur Weasley blasts it open and whatever, and then starts talking very excitedly to Uncle Vernon, who obviously is an awful human being. But what I like about it is he starts talking about he's really proud of like his plug collection. He's like, oh yeah, I've got all these sockets and plugs and stuff like that. He's like bragging about this thing that he's so proud of. But he doesn't understand that plugs and sockets to like a Muggle is just nothing.
Yeah. And
so I think those characters are so lovable. And so,
So you really admire their passion.
Yeah, their passion.
Both of them are extremely passionate about what they do. Yeah. They love their life.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I like about real people as well. They like, people's passions. I like listening about people's passions. I think that's...
Oh, could you imagine loving your life? Mm. Oh, that'd be nice.
I can imagine, but I can imagine a lot of things.
Okay, yeah, I kind of like that. That is really good suggestions. Fuck, this is hard for me because I've read too many fucking books, so I have too many...
That's not a thing. Sounds good, doesn't work.
And I don't want to pick a book that's insanely obscure either. I guess I would...
Well, I mean, no, you could. Like, you could pick an obscure book, but just say why you like the character, and maybe it'll interest people in that book.
Okay, there's an author I've loved since I was about this age... That...
He's holding his two fingers together about a few inches apart.
I'm not describing my penis. Now then, since I was a young man, he was called Darren...
Length or width?
Yes. Since I was a young man, called Darren Shan. Massive fan of his books, and there's a particular character from there whose name is Larton Crepsley. Basically, this is a series about vampires and all that, about a young boy named Darren Shan that becomes a vampire and all that. And Larton Crepsley was his mentor, his teacher, and he really resonated with me as a person because he's very traditional. He seems very proud of old-fashioned ways and all that. He's a very capable man, very fast, quick, capable sort of gentleman. And the way he would act with all other characters, he'd be very stuffy, very uptight, but he'd be very... It's how, and also he's an incredibly brave character, sacrifices himself to save Darren's life and all that sort of thing. And I guess as a young man, he was such a... hard to say, he was sort of a jack of all trades as a character. He seemed like someone that could seemingly do anything, but didn't like to brag. He was very modest, but very proud at the same time. And it's almost you could almost argue, for me, for example, as a role model of how to be as a person. And I've always met him as a character. That's why I've always enjoyed him so much.
Yeah. So like that character... So the author's name is Darren Shan.
Yeah, in the first series, his main character's also named Darren Shan.
So it's a POV, first person?
Yes, in a way.
That's nice. So what...
Although Larton Crepsley himself did get his own spin-off series.
So what is it specific? Do you like sort of see a bit of yourself in Darren reading those books, or
I see?
Is it just something that maybe you like?
I seem to
aspire to, or something like that.
I'd say definitely aspire to. Like I said, in a way, the character is somewhat of a role model of how you should be. You should be proficient, yet not be a show-off. You should be proud but modest.
Humble. Yeah.
It was also very articulate. He was also a very well-spoken gentleman that aspired to intelligence and wisdom over brute strength and all that. Even though he was incredibly strong, he's like a master martial artist. But he always favoured words over violence, sort of thing. Yeah. An advocate, like I said, like a jack of all trades sort of thing. And again, as a young man, reading about this sort of person was just amazing.
Yeah. What sort of books? What are they like? Adult books or
young adult
fiction?
Yeah, young adult fiction.
Very nice. Is it? So it's a series of books.
Oh yeah, it's a 12-book series.
Oh really? Oh wow.
Yeah, the Vampire Saga. There's also some other spin-off books. Another character I enjoy very much called Dervish Grady.
Is it the same universe or?
There's theories, although it's not confused. It's called the Demonato. Basically, it's about demons.
Oh, okay.
Main character, people who can use magic to kill demons and all that shit. And there's a character in that called Dervish Grady, who's an absolute cunt, but he's the biggest badass, awesome, hilarious, asshole, demon-killing guy ever.
Sound like the Doom guy.
Well, he took in his nephew Grubbs after his parents were horrifically slaughtered by demons, and I mean ripped apart, puddles of blood up to his ankles. That's his, and he took in his nephew, and he's rich as fuck, by the way, and he basically looks after him, sort of becomes his new guardian, but he's also a demon-slaying badass as well. But he also pulls pranks on him all the time. Like there's a bit in the book when they're seeing a news story about a guy that got decapitated, and the uncle goes, "Well, there's a man trying to get ahead in life." Like he's got a
banter.
He has an incredibly macabre sense of humour, and
got that gallows humour.
Yeah, I just jumped on that immediately.
Yeah.
So between those two, I'd say sort of thing. I seem to definitely resonate with authority figures in books, it would seem, because both of those characters were looking after someone and also teaching them and all that sort of thing. So
yeah.
I definitely seem to more resonate with figures of, I guess, care, paternal,
mentoring sort of.
Mentoring, paternal sorts of figures and all that sort of thing. People to like, I want to be like them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So someone to sort of inspire to be like, I suppose. Yeah. No. I think. I think like that as well as sort of a younger person. I liked sort of books like. Do you know the Alex Rider books?
I'm not familiar.
No, well, it's kind of, well, it's definitely like sort of a kind of a kids book, young teen kind of book about this kid called Alex Rider who gets recruited into MI6 to be a spy. But fun, believe it or not, I actually sort of attached more to because Alex Rider is obviously like the do right by all means sort of kind of character that that sort of thing. But I really liked the villains, and about how all of the villains in the books are all very different from each other, and they're all very charismatic and all exciting. Yeah, they're a bit cheesy, but like you're along for a good ride. But I think my point is that I for characters that inspired me, it's like those villains, in a way, it sounds a bit weird, actually inspired me to kind of write interesting, more wacky kind of characters. Not that I want to be like them, but like there were some villains. Like there was one that grew up like really, really poor, and then made himself into a millionaire. That's kind of a stereotype, but I thought that was kind of neat. But I also like, and we've been through Game of Thrones,
right?
We've been through Harry Potter to an extent, how human villains can be.
For example,
so for instance, Robert Baratheon.
You see him as a villain?
No, I don't see him as a villain, but I see him as very human. Is
flawed.
the fact, yeah, exactly. I find nowadays, just because the way that taste has gone, that like actual flaws. I'm not talking about like Mary Sue flaws where it's like, oh, they're absolutely perfect, oh, but they're a bit clumsy. I'm talking about actual real flaws, like personality flaws. I find those very interesting. So like Draco Malfoy, going back to Harry Potter, is that the way he is because he's grown up around his family that think this way about like pure blood and stuff like that, and as a kid you're going to soak that stuff up, so he's not totally responsible for just being a dick.
Product of the environment.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a flawed individual. And again, like Robert Baratheon, he started this whole rebellion, but actually didn't really care about ruling, nor did he know how to do it. But that's a personality flaw, and you're like, oh, people. I like the fact that you're sort of like, oh yeah, people feel this way, and I think that it draws me closer to characters when they're flawed, I think.
Would you say you've read the Lord of the Rings books, right?
I have read Lord of the Rings. That's the biggest flex I have in my entire life.
You ever read the Silmarillion?
No, I'm not that brave.
It's not worth it, trust me. But the bit I'm getting at is, for example, I wouldn't say book Saruman was flawed in any sort of like, because you could almost argue, because again, there's someone that's read it, book Saruman was a little bit sort of just fucking evil.
Yeah.
He was obviously, and I've obviously going out the way Christopher Lee presented him, he was obviously a sort of cliche, well-spoken sort of...
He's the evil British villain.
Evil British villain, he has a great aura about him. Presence is really strong and like deep voice and that sort of thing.
God. I mean, yeah, for sure. I think Lord of the Rings definitely has the good versus evil thing. Whereas Game of Thrones definitely muddies the waters.
Well, there's always Denethor, who again is a flawed human. Someone that was ruling Gondor, but obviously paranoia, losing his son, made him sort of unravel and become a bit of a despot.
Yeah. And then you have, characters like... my favourite character, I think, of all of Lord of the Rings is actually Eowyn. Theoden's niece.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because she, and much like Sam, her and Sam share lots of similarities, as in they're average people that do extraordinary things.
Oh, you mean killing the...
Yeah, exactly. But then, you have like Arwen, who's this immortal elf that has magic powers but doesn't do Jack Burger Allen. Like
her entire fucking storyline in the films is just riding on horses and crying.
Although in the books, I believe she's at Helm's Deep. I read the books when I was like 12, I think.
Although in the books, that whole rescue of Frodo with water horses from the Dark Riders and all that didn't happen in the books.
Yeah, and Legolas also never surfed down on a shield down those stairs at Helm's Deep.
Yeah. Well, the Battle of Helm's Deep in the books itself was only like one page.
Yeah.
I recall.
I think the thing is with Lord of the Rings is that it's quite difficult to read. Like the way it's written and the language that's used and the text is very small as well. So it's definitely not like it's not like Game of Thrones where the text is actually quite not plain but like simple. Lord of the Rings definitely is. It's got a certain writing style to it that you really kind of have to want to read it to get through it. Actually,
you know how you've probably come across this on the internet about how apparently there's a Scottish translation of the Harry Potter books, like the wee boy that Dinny lived and all that, and that exists. Like a Scottish translation. I'd love the text in Lord of the Rings to be modernised. That they're yeeting the hobbits to Isengard and sort of like, in it, fam.
taking a fucking wee cunts to Isengard, man.
That still only counts as one, you thought.
You fucking bastard.
A Scottish translation. It'd be sort of. I'd say, Scottish translation of Lord of the Rings, but the thing is that so many characters in Lord of the Rings are just accents from different parts of England.
Yeah,
a Scottish translation would be redundant because Gimli's pretty kind of Scottish.
Yeah, pretty Scottish. You just have to add the word cunt after that. Still, it counts as one, you cunt.
Exactly. Obviously, the hobbits are from hello, Mr. Frodo, like Yorkshire.
Somerset.
Yes, like
Yorkshire.
Countryside boys. Hello, Mr. Frodo. Shall we have ourselves some potatoes?
Yeah, right. I like fucking gonna put this ring on my finger, and I'm
gonna make Sam Bristolian or something,
he pretty is Bristolian,
or Birmingham or something.
He's like Bristolian, isn't he? I mean, the Sean Astin.
Hello there, Mr. Frodo.
Mr. Frodo.
We're going down to murder. Like from Birmingham.
Birmingham.
If the Peaky Blinders are listening to this right now, please don't blind me.
I mean, you can do if you want. At least I don't have to look at myself in the mirror ever again.
Wait, no, I'm one of you. Right now I'm holding a flat cap. So,
and I'm holding a razor blade.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
It's a personal effect.
I don't know. If you could translate a famous book into, imagine like with a different sort of accent.
Oh man, a different book. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine it? But in like
Pennywise.
But in like
I've read it, and that is a tough read.
Yeah. I mean, the book's fucking massive.
Try getting through the stands. Stephen King, while we're talking about books, have you ever read any Stephen King?
No, I haven't read any Stephen King.
Oh, that's shagged that then. One of the most influential authors of the last 4 decades.
I've seen his films, though.
Did you watch the Dark Tower film?
No. But here's a fun fucking fact. Here's a fun fucking fact about my school.
Right.
Is that in the school library at one point there were Dark Tower books in there.
Nice.
And then all of a sudden they disappeared because I'm fairly sure that the teachers didn't realise what was actually in them.
Yeah, there's a lot of murder, drugs. I mean, literally one of the main characters is a drug addict.
Yeah.
Through withdrawal and shit.
Yeah.
A lot of fucking. But they are really good books. That's the thing. There are schools in America that have apparently tried to get rid of To Kill a Mockingjay from their schools' libraries.
Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird, and because it was too uncomfortable. That's the fucking point. It's meant to be uncomfortable. It's about racism.
Oh yeah, what was that other group of racist people that like to get rid of books?
The Klan? Oh, you're on about Nazis?
Yeah.
My mind went to the Klan.
No, Nazis. I mean, the Klan are also racist, but
I don't know. I feel like it's hard to say about what books you should like. I'm sure it's good for like impressionable, idiotic, like TikToking kids to be reading Mein Kampf.
Well, I mean, I don't think they'd have a particularly good grasp of Mein Kampf. Also, just to put it out there, Mein Kampf was a #1 bestseller. I want
there to be a Mein Kampf challenge on TikTok. I don't know. You're hanging out a car door while reading excerpts from it or something while it's driving.
Did you not fucking
the Mein Kampf challenge?
Did you not fucking see that? Did you not fucking see that shit on TikTok those motherfuckers were doing? They were like,
I know of some of the challenges.
Pretending to be like Holocaust victims and shit.
What?
And like saying they were trying to like put forward this message of anti-racism and shit like that, but then they were like dressing up as Holocaust victims and stuff. And you're like, bro, you're not just wrong, you're stupid.
That's like me beating the shit out of a woman to raise awareness for abused women.
For misogyny, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really bad. It was really bad.
Oh, God damn it.
But...
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go first.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was I just talking about? I mentioned TikTok.
You're talking about...
Mein Kampf, yeah.
Mein Kampf.
In terms of
yeah.
books...
Oh, wait. God, take a shot.
Oh, yeah, Nazis. Nazi. Obviously, it's always a delicate thing. Like, should we take certain books out of the populace because they just invoke prejudice? Like, there's nothing artistic or interpretational. It's just mindless hate.
I think that asks the question whether it's a book or whether it's propaganda. Because
where's the line drawn?
So for instance, if there's a book that's like a story. So for instance, there is an awful book that I've read excerpts from. It's called The Turner Diaries. Have you heard of this book?
Not familiar.
Okay, right. So like this is the sort of shit that would get Hitler hard. It's a book about a I can't believe I'm saying this. Not that we're monetized anyway, so it doesn't matter, but
yeah.
It's a book about a white uprising against people of colour and a sort of genocide within America. Now, this book is a story. Whereas you have things like Mein Kampf, for instance, which isn't a story. It's
bollocks.
It is bollocks, but it's the same. Like it's a book. Mein Kampf is a non-fiction book, whereas The Turner Diaries is a fiction book.
It's pretty much like a conspiracy theory book in a way. Like it's all because it details about Zionism and Jews and
but
shit.
The difference is The Turner Diary and Mein Kampf. They're both hate-filled books. One of them's fiction, one of them's not. So I believe that actually all books should have access. People should have access to all books.
Then maybe we should age restrict books, like the same way we age restrict films. Because the same way you don't want to have a kid watch Hellraiser, which is an 18-rated film, because their impressionable, delicate, unmatured mind wouldn't be able to handle a lot of themes and structures. And why can't we have that for books in some ways? Like make Mein Kampf an 18-rated book.
Well, I mean, that's to do with children, I suppose. But that goes to the question. It's like I don't believe that a sane child is going to read Mein Kampf and suddenly be like, you know what? I don't know, man. That Hitler guy sort of maybe has... I feel that sane people don't really... Like if you... Much like, people that say that violence causes... video games cause violence. It's like, no, those people probably had way more problems going on. It wasn't this.
What's that line from Scary Movie? Like... TV shows don't make people violent. Cancelling TV shows makes them violent.
Video games don't make people violent. Lag does.
No, 360 drop shot no scopes.
Yeah.
Those of you might not understand this. Back in the day, in a Call of Duty lobby, voice chat was pretty much. It's like humanity. I think it was Mark Twain who's. It was either Mark Twain or Oscar Wilde said, "A man has leased himself with his own face. Give him a mask and he'll tell you the truth." What he should have said is, "Give him a headset and he'll tell you the truth."
No, give him a headset and he'll scream the N-word 50 fucking times within a minute. That's what will happen.
Exactly. And again, someone that's willing to do that, you really want them to get access to books that will give them ideas. I mean, I know a nut job's a nut job, but the last thing you want to do is give a crazy person a gun.
Yeah, but I think,
America.
Censorship. And so I feel though that
is it censorship if you're not getting rid of it, but you're just restricting it?
Yeah, no, telling someone, oh, you're not allowed to read this. It's like, why not?
So
it's
then,
like, who are you to say what I can and cannot read?
Well, then, would you say age ratings on movies are censorship?
Well, it's up to the parents. Yeah. Oh, well, no, they're not censorship because you're still allowed to show those movies.
That's what I'm saying. Don't get rid of the books. Just restrict them by age.
I mean, you can do that, but I mean, we watched 18
I mean,
films.
I think certain libraries have like young adult sections and kids sections, and if you look like you're in an adult section, the librarian will come up and smack the shit.
Yeah,
out
but
of you.
we watched 18 films.
Of course we did. We just weren't.
I don't think limiting the age limit. I don't think limiting the age is going to stop kids. I mean, to be fair, I don't think kids. This maybe sound like a really boomer thing to say, but I don't think kids read books as much anymore.
I have.
There will be some, but like I feel like visual media is definitely.
What about Kindles?
Taken.
Like, kids have those now. Like, you say kids are all adoptive onto technology, but Kindles work as, like, a way for kids to experience books online. And
Yeah,
I do a little bit in schools. Like, you remember in primary school, part of your homework would be reading, like, 2 chapters of something, wouldn't it?
I believe that. I'm more saying, like, the visual, like, so, like, a video. I think if you got 100 kids in a room and asked them, would you rather watch a video or read something, even if it was on, like, a screen or a book, they'd probably say I'd rather watch the video.
I think
remember how
but I would have said the same thing, like, and I was an avid reader, but I'd always rather watch something. Like in school, you'd always want video day, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So like, I believe that probably. I don't know. I guess our generation, in a way, will probably tell because we're the ones that sort of crossed over from books to visual media.
We're the bridge between worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
what we considered, because there's Zoomers, that's the current one. I think that's the current generation. There's Millennials.
That's us. We're the millennial snowflakes, apparently.
Are we Millennials?
Oh no, actually, apparently.
We were 90s kids. What was like Gen Z or something?
No, apparently, we are Gen Z. Because apparently, I looked this up on the internet, so it's definitely true. Apparently, Gen Z ends in 1995.
Oh, we just made the cutoff.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not. So apparently we're not. Whatever, but it's like.
And then before us, the boomers.
I believe though, like 90s kids, like I think you actually have to be conscious of the fact that you did grow up in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like someone said, "Oh yeah, I was born in 1998. I'm a 90s kid." It's like, no, you isn't. Get to fuck. Like,
I agree with the online comedian Adam Buckley when because he said he was born in the late 80s and then he was realistically a conscious kid through the 90s. I'd say that's really a 90s.
Yeah, if you actually grew up during the 90s, not you were born 2 years before it ended. It's like, no, man.
If you spent the 90s shitting yourself, you're not a 90s kid.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you took loads of drugs and shit. All right.
Wait, did drugs make you shit yourself?
Yeah.
Oh. They don't put that in the Scorsese films, do they?
No. They just put loads of racist Italian stereotypes. What?
A guy does a line of coke and instantly blows out his pants.
Yeah, I think I'm more talking about like heroin and stuff, but...
I wouldn't know.
Oh. I've watched documentaries.
Oh, yes. The other documentaries.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen who are still listening, which you're definitely probably not. If you're smart, you have not. But
all negative 2 of you.
We made No, we didn't make a promise. But we said we were going to do a thing.
You sound like a Tory. We didn't make a promise, we only set it as a target.
Yeah. And even if I did, it was a non-binding verbal agreement.
Yes.
Not in writing. So I followed the signs, and I've decided that,
it was stated as a long-term goal.
Yes, exactly. And now I'm lacking in intelligence, much like a Labour supporter is lacking in personality. Back to you, Priti Patel. I'm done. I don't fucking know.
Priti Patel, what?
Oh, it's a long story. Well,
okay.
Not so long as much uninteresting.
Well, what's our next section?
Well, our next section is that, as some people might know if they've been listening for long enough, which, my God, you are brave if you have, Dylan and I are in the process and have written books.
We're authors. Ta-da!
Yes. By the strictest definition, we are authors.
Do we have publishers lined up? Mind your own business.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. The famous publisher Nunya, as in None Your Business.
Oh.
Yeah. But I'm
signed up with Sparrow. They're like Penguin, but not as good. I'm sorry. Sorry.
What? A sparrow is nothing like a penguin.
Exactly.
You might. You could have at least called it seagull.
It was
or
the
something.
first bird that came to my mind for the joke.
Oh, come on, man. You could do better than
What
that.
am I, a writer?
Come on, man. Well, apparently so, because...
Prove it.
Well,
Oh, shit.
I'm not going to, but you are.
All right, me and Rob are going to read sections from our book. Who's going first, Rob, me or you?
Do you want to go first, or...
I can go first if you'd like me to.
I'll let you go.
This is my book, Beastborn. It is from I'll give you a brief little synopsis about it. It is
give some context to the scene as well.
It is a young adult, I guess you'd call it fictional, supernatural, urban fantasy thriller. Basically, it's about a young boy named Arthur Thorne who, after a certain amount of circumstances, finds himself to be a werewolf on a journey with a teacher named Kratos Main. The short excerpt I'm going to read is somewhat close towards the end of the book, although don't worry, it will not give out any spoilers, where the boy Arthur Thorne is going through current challenges in terms of coming to grips with his abilities and powers as a werewolf. And this is him out in the snow during a vicious storm, not long after he has recently caused a massive glacial fissure.
Exactly. Oh, stop looking through my browser history.
Oh my god, what are those midgets doing with that snake?
Everything. Anyway, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we have Beastborn by Dylan Altoft.
Overdid it a bit, it seems. The inner beast noted, but not with criticism, but casual observation. Shame, Arthur grunted back at the beast inside his head. I was just warming up, he followed confidently as he pulled his wiggle finger at the left claw of his hand, wriggling it rapidly and allowed it to drop by his side. His knuckles were bloody and bare, but Arthur felt no pain. The impact from the punch was still buzzing through his body like an electric hum, numbing him to any pain. Arthur looked around the wall, admiring his work. He then peered inside the hole where his arm once was and again smirked. He began imagining what effect that punch would have had on a vampire's body if he had struck it with the same force. As Arthur was about to consider throwing a second punch, just to test whether or not he could break the wall completely, causing it to collapse on top of him, a dark, gritty voice spoke a few feet behind him. Very cute, it said mockingly. He was a very tall man. He was of medium build. His skin was as pale as the snow around them both, with the trademark blood-red eyes. He wore a black shirt with a tough, dark brown leather jacket on top of it. There were 2 leather straps going from his shoulders to his sides, then wrapped around his waist with holsters attached. He also had thick black trousers with black boots to match and a brown leather gloves on his hands. The vampire's face was littered with scars. The biggest scar was a diagonal line that ran from his left eyebrow to his right shoulder. On top of his head was a large, dark-rimmed brown fedora hat with a row of teeth strapped around all of its sides. Resting comfortably in the holsters strapped to his sides were 2 shiny revolver guns. Each of them was the size of nearly the man's own head, it looked. The man gazed hard at Arthur with an interested glance and smirked to match Arthur's own. I must say it's always fun watching you dogs just throw your arms around like flailing children, he commented. His voice was a dark, gritty tone, hard and resilient. Arthur turned to face the man completely. He took a hesitant step back, readying himself for an attack. The man's left eyebrow rose, bemused. Calm your tail, boy. If I wanted you dead, I would have planted a slug between your eyes before you even had a chance to move. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen, a small technical difficulty.
I think we can cut this, can't we?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
We are now continuing. Apologies there. Between your eyes, faster than you could sniff the residue. Arthur eyed him carefully. He was unsure of this stranger's agenda. He was clearly a vampire, but he behaved unlike any he had met so far. All other vampires he had met were stylishly clothed and clear-faced. They resembled rich dandies that let others do their dirty work. Not this man. He looked different through his presence. He was stronger and clearly harder. Arthur could tell purely from his own wolf instincts. Arthur didn't make a move. He was cornered and couldn't escape where he was. His only hope was for the second the vampire went for his gun, he would try and leap forward to strike. The man observed Arthur for a bit longer, and then he chuckled. "I've been tailing you for a while, you know," he said casually, catching Arthur's attention. "You've upset a lot of fat wallops, and those silk eaters don't forget a headache any time soon," he continued. The vampire's left hand began to grasp the handle of his revolver. Arthur snarled in response. That was the only warning he could give. The vampire only tutted patronisingly at Arthur. "That's the problem with you dogs," he voiced condescendingly at Arthur. Then, before Arthur could widen his eyes with shock, the man had his right arm extended, with the other revolver firmly gripped in his hand and finger on the trigger. "You just don't seem to keep your eye on the ball." Arthur gulped uneasily as the end of the gun was pointed straight at him. He didn't even see the vampire's right arm move. It was with speed that was faster than he had ever seen Kratos move. His left hand was still resting on his left gun as his right hung in the air, pointing straight towards Arthur. The man hummed as he saw Arthur not move. "I could save my kind a lot of trouble, and I'd just plant you right here and now," he mused aloud. Arthur's breath was becoming rapid as his mind went blank. He was trying to think of a plan. The man's thumb cocked the hammer, closing his left hand eye and staring down the sight. There was absolute silence in Arthur's mind, as he was unable to think of a solution to this problem. Any second the vampire could pull the trigger and he would be dead. He remembered being shot on the airplane, but some part of him felt this would not be any ordinary gunshot. This man knew exactly what he was shooting at, and he wouldn't bring a useless gun, let alone useless bullets. Arthur stared hard at the man, his own gaze unblinking with the vampire's careful yet focused look back. The vampire stared back at him with his open eye as he waited to see how Arthur would react. But Arthur could think of nothing else but to stay still. It wasn't like in the snow, and he wasn't resigning himself to death, but he felt this was a situation where he needed to think more than fight. After a few seconds passed, the man smiled. He opened his left eye and pulled his gun back into the air. "But if I do such a thing before I'm told, then I don't get paid," he finally said, tilting his head to the left slightly. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he spun his revolver around his hand several times as he finished by slamming the gun back into its holster perfectly. Arthur looked back at the man with absolute shock. And I'll stop right there.
All right. Very nice.
That was a small excerpt from Beast Born. Hopefully be available to you guys by the end of the year.
Hopefully.
That was a little bit of a cheap moment for Rob, because like I said, he's currently testing the book, and that is quite far ahead of where he is currently.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, did that all sound interesting to you,
That
Rob?
does sound very good. I enjoy there's some good world building in there. Yeah, definitely some... It's from what I've read, which no one else has read quite yet. From what I've read, I'm this actually definitely gonna be well. Obviously, I'm gonna be going through it as well. But yeah, no, excited for it, and I hope that this has made some people excited for it as well.
If anyone is interested, please by all means let us know down in the comments, and I may release further excerpts through social media. In the meantime, though, Rob, it is your turn. What is your book?
Yes, well, for those of you who have not been following the YouTube channel or listening to our podcast, which you should do both at your own risk. But my book is... my book's name is Seelowe. That is German for sea lion. Now, for those of you who don't know, Operation Sea Lion was the Nazi contingent for the invasion of the United Kingdom during World War II. My book is it's a fiction of about what that might have been like should the Nazis have decided to invade. I'm well aware there are some historians out there that say that it would never happen and could never have happened. Yes, I'm well aware of this as well. However, I'm allowed to write stories, and this is a story. So, this...
Quick thing,
yeah.
sorry. Why do you think it wouldn't have worked? Would it have been because of our Navy, because of our Air Force? Because the Blitz hit us quite hard.
It was definitely because of the Navy. The Royal Navy was Britain's greatest kind of defence. Also, the German army at the time was... There's this idea that they were basically unstoppable. They definitely did do a lot. However, they weren't quite as strong as people like to believe. They used horses a lot, to tow their supplies and move their troops and stuff like that. Despite, people saying that they're fully mechanized, they weren't. This is a whole rabbit hole to go down. I'm well aware of the reality of what it would have been like, but I thought it's an alternative history book. It's an alternative history book. Stuff doesn't happen. For instance, Germany doesn't invade Russia. They actually they honour the von Ribbentrop Pact, which is...
So it's like a parallel sort of...
Yeah, alternative history. Yeah, that's what it is.
Interesting.
But this particular chapter follows Sally Brown. Some of you who may have listened to my Seelowe, the two chapters that are on this channel. Sally is story. She British girl. She joined the she became a nurse at the age of 16. She lied about her age, and she fought or served in one of the battles during the invasion of the UK. She was then promptly, you might have listened from our first book episode that we did, that she was captured by the Germans. She then served with the Germans for a little bit, and then she managed to escape. And this chapter is slightly afterwards. So what happened was she was picked up. She managed to make her way to friendly people, and she was recruited by MI5 operatives. One of them, Colette Sinclair, which again, if you've listened to Seelowe, my second chapter, you'll know who she is. And basically, the Germans have reached London, and there is a rally that's going on between the Nazis and the BUF. The BUF is the British Union of Fascists, led by Oswald Mosley. You can look those guys up. But the plan was for Sally and a group of others to infiltrate the BUF and through over a few months, and then when this big rally happens, their plan was to disrupt them by planting suitcase bombs sort of throughout the big kind of building and throughout the rally. And this, Sally has managed to take her suitcase, and she's got to her target, and it's just and she's just set the timer. So here we go. I'm just going to have a quick sip here, hydrate. Okay. Sally set the timer, and it began to tick. Barely a second after closing the suitcase, the door opened. Vincent Huckle staggered into the room. He was drunk. Sally could tell by the way he swayed slightly on his feet. He had a nasty sneer on his face, revealing his crooked teeth. "Hello, precious," he slurred. Sally's heart plummeted as Vincent turned, locking the door.
What are you doing up here all alone? You're missing a fun time.
I just had to drop something off here. I'll be right down, Sally replied, trying her best to sound as calm as possible. Vincent blinked slowly before resting his eyes on the suitcase.
Like what?
Nothing exciting. Paperwork, probably. Sally brushed it off. Vincent's smile disappeared.
Yeah, of course you are special to them, after all.
Sally mustered a small smile. Vincent began to circle around the desk towards her. She slowly circled around too, wanting to keep as much space between her and Vincent as possible. Sally was very conscious of the ticking and hoped Vincent wouldn't hear. She hoped that he might be too drunk. Vincent ran his finger across the case, and then turning his attention to Sally, her heart was in her throat.
Well, since we're up here alone, I think we should talk.
About what? Sally said, trying to back towards the door.
About if you and I are going to be serious.
Serious?
About each other. I know there is a mutual attraction between us, Sally. I think we should stop beating around the bush.
I'm sorry, Vincent, but I don't think now's the right time to talk about this.
Oh, come on, don't play around with me. I want us to be honest with each other. And I will respect your honesty.
Sally was almost at the door, feeling around for the handle, but before she could grasp the key, Vincent lurched forward, clumsily placing his hand on Sally's arm. She could smell the drink on his breath.
I really do like you, Sally. And if you want to take this slow, then we can. I think we could be happy.
He leant forward, trying to go in for a kiss. I don't think so, Sally said, turning her head away and stepping aside, trying to gain some personal space. Vincent took 2 drunken steps back.
Why not?
He said. His face was offended. Sally cursed herself. Vincent was now blocking her escape. I just don't see you in that way. Sally knew it was a weak excuse, but she was very aware of the literal ticking time bomb in the room and the rendezvous she had to make.
What did you say to me?
Vincent said in a low voice, dripping poison. I said I don't see you in that way. Now, if you excuse me, I think we should leave. Sally took a few cautious steps towards Vincent. Big mistake. Vincent went for her. He grabbed her by the shirt, pulling her up to his face.
Stop playing around with my feelings, you little bitch,
he spat. Without thinking, Sally raised her hand in defence, slapping Vincent. He swore, letting go. For a moment he paused, a look of surprise on his face, but soon it warped into rage. Sally began to step back, but she was too slow. Vincent lunged at her, striking her across the face with the back of his hand. Sally cried out, staggering backwards. She felt Vincent's heavy hands yanking on her hair, holding her tight, shoving her against the desk, strewing everything, including the suitcase, off the desk.
You're going to enjoy this,
he snarled in her ear. Sally threw her head back, feeling it connect with Vincent's nose, rounding on him, raising a hand to slap him again, but he caught her by the wrist. She tried with her remaining free hand, but he caught that too, shoving Sally up against the wall. She lashed out with her feet, striking his shin. Vincent howled in pain, forcing Sally to the floor. He clenched his hands around her neck, pressing down on her windpipe. Sally tried to relinquish his grip, but he was too strong. Her lungs screaming for air, Sally scrambled around for anything she could hit her attacker with. Her vision was beginning to blur. Sally felt a cold metal object brush against her fingers. With her last ounce of strength, she grasped it and slammed it against Vincent's neck. The object in question was a letter opener. Vincent's grip released immediately. He fell back, fingering the handle sticking out of his neck. A tirade of obscenity spewed from his mouth. He lurched at Sally. Air filled her lungs. She grabbed the handle sticking out of Vincent's neck. Blood spurted from his wound. Sally wrenched the blade out, then plunging it back in again and again. Vincent's face was one of shock. Making a feeble attempt to wrestle the knife away from her, Sally pushed him off, stabbing over and over in a frenzy. Torrents of fresh, warm blood soaked the carpet and her clothes.
Finally, Vincent stopped moving. Sally dropped the knife. She was shaking. For a moment she was paralysed in shock. Then she remembered the bomb in the room. Stumbling to her feet, Sally made for the door. She was about to turn the handle. She heard voices and boots on the steps outside. They were on their way. She dared not think what they might do if they found her like this. There was only one thing for it. Crossing the room, Sally opened the window behind the desk. It was small, but so was she. She managed to ease herself out onto the roof, into the cold winter air. The sound of the rally could be heard on the other side of the building. Tentatively, Sally stole a glance over the side. A balcony jutted out 10 feet below her. The drop would be unpleasant, but there was no time to worry. Swallowing her fear, Sally sat down, her legs dangling off the edge. She was about to push off when the balcony doors opened. Light spilled out. A man in German uniform strolled into view. Sally froze. The soldier lit a cigarette, exhaling a cloud of smoke into the air. All it would take was for him to look up at the moonlit sky, and she'd be done for. "Hey, you!" a shout came from behind Sally. A BUF adjutant was leaning out of the window of the office. They must have broken through the door. There was nothing for it. Sally pushed. Falling with all the grace of a sack of potatoes, Sally landed heavily directly onto the smoking soldier. Before the man even had the time to gather himself, Sally was over the side of the balcony, crashing painfully into the concrete below. Forcing herself to her feet, Sally made for the darkness of a nearby alley. The rendezvous point was only 2 streets away. She could still make it if she hurried. Fear spurred her forward, each step leading her away from the vicious weasel's nest. Sally became very aware of raised voices in German and British. She picked up the pace, just one more street to cross, and into the dark alley where a car would be waiting. The alley loomed into view. Sally couldn't have been happier to see such a dark, dingy place. "Halt!" A command in German rang out from behind her. "Aufhören zu gehen!" Sally broke into a run. She would be safe soon. The shouting continued. Finally, she rounded the corner and into the alley, and immediately her heart sank. There was no car. There was no car. Torch beams illuminated the dead end, casting Sally's shadow against the wall. Sally turned and raised her hands. And I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger.
Woo! Hashtag me too.
Yeah.
Very powerful stuff. Very uncomfortable yet very engaging drama. People with raised tensions and all of that. Almost like wild animals turning on each other and the like.
Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, it's work in progress, first draft sort of stuff, but you know, that's a little bit.
I very much look forward to hearing more yourselves.
Oh,
and if
thank
you
you very
yourselves will look forward to hearing more, let us know down in the comments what you thought of either of our excerpts there from our books.
Yeah, and let us know if you want more. But also, if you have any questions about anything, leave them in the comments below. We will be happy to answer anything. And I mean anything.
Once again, the more depraved, probably the funnier our banter will be. So
Yes.
We'll leave it to you. Don't ask us what our favourite fucking animal is. Who gives a shit?
But you can do, if you want, by the way, for me, just, you know.
Unicorn, but instead of a horn, it's a dildo.
Ah.
Unihorn.
A unihorn.
Unihorny.
A unihorny. A unihorny. That was very insensitive. I apologise.
They just say that to each other all day, and the answer is always yes, constantly.
Yes, all the time. Anyway, this, ladies and gentlemen, has been our second book episode. I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope you stay young, hope you stay gold. And until next time.
Laughing on a Prayer.